Welcome to the NAFEM Show 2025 and welcome to this specially convened expert panel session addressing the impact that kitchen conditions are having on the well-being of employees and the knock-on impact on retaining and recruiting talent in the first place. We're here at the Halton booth at the NAFEM Show. I'm delighted to say that Halton and the Burnt Chef Project are supporting this important topic, which has also included the publishing of a new report, a survey of 150 North American chefs called The Kitchen Condition. The findings of that survey we'll be able to discuss here. Before we do that, let me ask my expert guests to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their experience. We'll start with you first, please, Tom.
Hi, Tom Mitchell. I'm past president of MAFSI and currently a chief ambassador for the Burnt Chef Project. And I've been around the industry for about 54 years.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us today, Tom. And Chris?
So my name is Chris Hall. I'm the CEO of the Burnt Chef Project. I haven't been around the industry for that long, but I've been in the industry now for about 16 years, so committed to try and make sure this industry is as sustainable as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you.
My name is Colleen Silk, and I'm based here in the U.S. out of Ocean City, Maryland. I've been in the industry officially 20 years this year as a teenager when I started, and it's just been a wonderful organization and get to know Chris and be here with you all at NAFEM. This is incredible.
Thank you, Colleen. And Imran?
My name is Imran Texera. I'm a chef from Toronto, Canada. I've had about just over a decade and a half of experience working in different parts of Canada around the world and a few stints on the Food Network as well. So I've been able to see a lot of cool different angles and avenues of what the food world has to offer us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Let's get straight into the questions. Chris, can you help us set the scene? Can you describe some of the biggest challenges that are currently impacting on chefs right now, not just in North America, but globally? And what are the consequences of those challenges?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that we see is work-life balance, and it's been a challenge that has existed for a really, really long time. Back probably about 7 years ago before COVID, the solution was to go agency, and then you get to earn a lot more money, which they thought at the time was the primary driver. But it turns out it wasn't. It was the working hours that they could pick and choose. So we're finding that work-life balance is one of the key areas, but it's also health as well, and long-term viability. Since COVID was like holding a beach ball underwater, and the further you push it down, when you eventually let go, it pops up, and everyone's suddenly gone, wait, what am I meant to be doing with my life? And hold on a second, I'm working all these hours, but what am I getting in return? And it was this big aha moment, and I think that we need to be looking, specifically as chefs as well, on how we create environments and cultures that encourage them to come and to find the balance that they've been looking for a long time.
Great, thank you, Chris. Colleen, how have you seen employee retention particularly affected here in North America in a post-COVID period? So is it much harder now to recruit people? Is it much harder to retain them?
It was hard to get people to come back to work. Once we reopened the world, getting people to come back into the industry was really hard because, as Chris said, they found jobs that were more conducive to having a family life. And as a mother myself, working 14 hours a day and then going home and caring for a baby isn't conducive to any sort of physical or mental life. So right now, the biggest struggle is bringing people that come in that want to be there and do the work, that aren't just like, you know what, this was too much, and they're out the next day. And it's huge turnover. So turnover is still very popular. Keeping people in the kitchen specifically is the hardest. I mean, can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. That's really what happens every day in kitchen life right now.
Thank you very much. Tom, why is it so important to keep improving kitchen conditions? And what happens if we don't get it right, if we don't give that the appropriate focus? So why is it so important the industry course corrects this?
For years and years, it was pretty close to slave labor. And I know that's a bold statement to make, but kitchen conditions were awful. I've had experiences where I've gone into a kitchen and they've been complaining about the equipment that I've supplied them with not working properly, gas equipment. And I take a look around and I notice the hood is running, but they don't have the return fresh air on because it costs money to temper and it's too expensive. And so the equipment's not working properly and the staff all has blue lips. And some of them are even wandering around in a daze. And I've seen that in more than one occasion. It's a hard environment to work in, and we've got to make it better.
We do indeed. And on that point, Imran, why does the industry continually underestimate the physical but also the mental impacts that poor kitchen conditions can have on people? And what else needs to be done to draw attention to those aspects?
Yeah, I think people have to really understand like the kind of mental and physical toll it takes to work in these kitchens. If it's quick service, fine dining, Michelin restaurants, whatever it is, there's so much strain on the body and mind with the pressure of working in those environments. With a lot of the kids that I talk and work with, I try to explain working in these realms is like being a professional athlete. We are on our feet for multiple hours a day. We are in high stress environments. We are moving hot things, working with sharp knives and whatnot. But we're not training ourselves like these athletes are. We're not thinking about our recovery. We're not thinking about the food, the water, all these different things that actually makes our body run efficiently.
Yeah.
A lot of the times we're maybe drinking more alcohol than we are water. We're not thinking about food that makes us run well. We're thinking about what's the quickest out of the deep fryer, eating it over a garbage can in the back corner, if we even have time to do that. It's about prioritizing those things to make sure that our body is sustainable and being able to run efficiently for us to work those hours, because those are the normal working hours in this line of work. But we have to think, what are we doing to set ourselves up for the best success possible?
But that also translates into productivity from a business owner perspective. Like, if you look at turnover, which is high within our sector, it's anywhere between 60 to 125% plus. That's a very, very high. You look at another, like insurance or finance, if you've got 10% turnover rates, you've got a problem with your culture. Whereas the rates, that's fine. But to put that into context, for every single person that leaves an organization within the first 90 days, it costs that organization $4,500. Now, if you've got a workforce of 100, you're losing 125 people over the course of a year. Operationally, you need to do what you can to make sure that people are staying, that they're performing at their best, and that they have no reason to leave, because net operating profits of 2 to 3% is unsustainable. But that's always the way it's been, and that's the hospitality industry. We need to start looking at servicing those in the service profession so that those turnover rates reduce and that it's sustainable. And that includes health, well-being, mental health, benefits, support.
Proper training.
Absolutely. Training's a huge part here. But in terms of the actual environmental conditions of a kitchen, let's look at it from the positive side point of things, Chris. How much of a difference can a brighter, a well-ventilated, a cleaner, properly designed kitchen make to the well-being of a chef who works in it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, for some strange reason, I started thinking of those puppet shows, where someone is crunched in a box and the puppet is doing their thing. This isn't magic. These are real life human beings that we're talking about. And when you think about being in a prone position, hunched over a desk, like imagine if you work in an office job, right? You're hunched over a desk, you're not able to sit down, you've got a really hot heater on your face, and you've got someone with a megaphone shouting in your ear 24/7. That's unsustainable, right? So starting to think about kitchen designs, layout, whether the lighting is going to interfere with the circadian rhythm, whether or not the fans are constantly giving you that audio stress. Induction hobs, they reduce less heat, but they're also easier to clean, which then means that people are going home sooner. So we need to make sure that we are continually looking at how we create long-term change. And it might start off with small tweaks, but rubber matting, RSI, repetitive strain injury, carpal tunnel syndrome and things like this. Are there ways that we can start to just make long-term meaningful change that will require investment? Induction hobs aren't cheap, for example, but if that reduces your turnover rates by 10%, then it's paid for itself in year one, right?
Absolutely. Let's talk about that investment, Tom, and look at it from an equipment point of view. Investing in better, more efficient, more sustainable equipment can create clearly a better workplace, but it all costs money. So, and operators are already in a challenging environment out there financially. So how do we square that circle?
The manufacturers are working overtime right now to come up with what we're calling mechanization or automation. The idea of robots is not a thing, okay? That's a nice idea, but it's not going to be the answer. So it's more of mechanization of the kitchen. And the first example of that was the conveyor pizza oven. People realized that you couldn't afford to go out and hire a pizziola to work 12, 14 hours a day and make fresh pizzas with a deck oven. So it became a situation where it had to be done where the guaranteed cook of the pizza was done by the oven. rather than the staff. So then the staff can go do other things while that's cooking.
That's such an important distinction. Like, there's that old school mentality of, if we're being replaced by robots and machinery and advanced technology, then it's destroying our industry. No longer are we going to need chefs because the equipment will do it. That's the wrong way of thinking. It's about actually, how do we utilize technology to empower individuals to look at leadership, mentorship, skill development, rather than saying, well, we've taken that time away from you, so you don't need to be here. How do we empower and build the skills of tomorrow by utilizing technology for it? And so again, it's that mindset shift to, this is all bad.
Well, you're not going to replace the skilled jobs in the kitchen for the most part. The automation is going to replace the lowest end, the entry level, where it's hardest. Literally the hardest to get somebody who's going to stay. And I think everybody's realized that retention is way less expensive than new entry every time. And that's got to be the key.
So, Imran, let's focus on the chefs themselves. Does a happy chef make and serve better food? Why does this stuff matter?
Because it's maybe a simple thing, right? A happy chef makes happy food, loving food. If we have those old kind of traditions or memories of our mother or grandmother or our dad cooking on the barbecue with us, whatever it is, there's always warm memories when it's around food, the nostalgia, if you will. And I always find, if it's from back of house or front of house, happy people offer happy service. Yeah. And when you're thinking about retention of your staff and treating your staff well and making sure that it's a happy environment, they're going to create a happy environment for your guests, and that's going to keep guests coming. So it's going to be retention, not just for your staff, but for your guests coming back time and time again.
And on that front, Colleen, are you seeing things improving? Are you positive that things are going in the right direction in the US and in Canada?
I think that it has to. There's too much noise now to pretend that it doesn't exist. There's organizations like us, the Bird Chef. There's other ones that we've all kind of had enough. So this generation, we're not breeding a generation of like soft people. It's more about, we have a tolerance now to be able to do our job the right way in an efficient way. And there's tools and resources to do that. And more of us are being more vocal about it, and we're implementing these structures from the top down. And then for new restaurant owners, I just encourage you, if you're looking to invest in like a business, it's all about the people that you're bringing in, and they all should have a purpose. Don't just put a body in there. And same with your equipment, everything should have a purpose before you even open the doors. So I do think that there is this positive change. There's going to be a constant evolvement. It's not going to happen overnight, especially I think in the US, we've got a lot more work to do. But it's happening. There's too many of us now for them to turn away.
Yeah, and it's all very well and good dropping the grenade at the door and walking away and saying that's your problem now. But I think that where we are as an organization is we have dynamic, experienced individuals who can just ask those open questions like, have you considered, or how are you addressing this problem? And if someone turns around and goes, I didn't know I had to manage the stress of my team, that's okay. Head across to the website. You've got a free downloadable guide that will take you by step, how to risk assess stress within your workplace to make sure that it's psychologically safe moving forward. So it's about actually asking those questions and being able to help them with those changes long term. And it's a bloody exciting time. Like, honestly, I'm so positive and hopeful for the future. But as Colleen said, it's going to take time. It can't be an overnight fix.
Let's look at some of the top line findings that we found in the kitchen conditions survey. I'll read out the kind of the top line figures and tell me your reaction to them. So, of the 150 North American chefs we surveyed, 79% of chefs considered leaving the profession at some point in the past year. 7.5 days were lost to sickness by kitchen staff in 2024, which is twice the national average in the US. 79% of chefs have reported having difficulties recruiting employees in the past year. 97% of chefs believe that suboptimal working conditions have a significant negative impact on physical health, and 95% feel that there's a negative impact on mental health. Do these findings surprise you? Do they sadden you? Which ones alarm you the most? And how fixable are they? Colleen, let's go with you first.
I'm not shocked by any of it because I've lived it and I'm very vocal about it. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a really tough industry to be in. And we've kind of built this culture of you just take it on the chin and you keep showing up. So the mental health part of it, a lot of us suffer from it because we just want to put a smile on. We're in the yes industry. Yes, I will work 14 hours. Yes, I will not sleep tonight and I'll come in tomorrow. I'll scrub the ovens. It's just something that we're instilled, ingrained to do, and it shouldn't be the norm. It just happens to be that our industry doesn't know how to pause. It saddens me to hear so many chefs be so open about it, but I'm also really proud of everyone to being so vocal, because if they're not, then no one's going to believe us at the end of the day. Like, we need to be continually having these conversations, and don't be embarrassed by it. Like, that's the biggest thing, is everyone has stuff going on in their lives. I don't know a single perfect person. But for chefs, there's a lot of pride in what you do. And I think it's being afraid to take that mask off of, like, I'm a human at the end of the day. Like, we're trying to humanize the industry. Yes, there's machines. They're not going to be robots taking over our jobs, but there's tools and resources and machines that we can bring in to alleviate some of these working conditions so they can be a person at the end of the day. I mean, you would know better than most. I don't work in the kitchen. No one wants me back there. I'm the front of house. But Imran lives it and he understands it, so
Yeah, it's just those kind of those pressures, right? Where some of those numbers are alarming, but that's the reality. That's the world that we live in. And to be honest, I'm one of those numbers, right?
Yep.
I add to those percentages. I've thought about leaving the industry. How can I pivot? What can offer me a better balance for my life? Or what can take less pressure off my body and mind? I'm 30 years old. I already feel the carpal tunnel and stuff in my wrist and whatnot. And I have friends not that much older than I that have had to get hip replacements, or they've had to get back surgery and whatnot. And I'm like, things that you'd only think in your later, like, half of your life, you're having your first third.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely crazy. So putting more of an importance on that so we can have a longer career, but a longer life in general, because we don't live to work and we shouldn't work to live.
Yeah.
Right? It should be a beautiful balance across the whole spectrum.
The shock to me is this 75%. When I was in the restaurant business, I had 289 staff and 600 seats. And we ran it as a team. And to use that analogy of an athlete is the best one, okay? But you also need to create that team environment, because one of the biggest things that people don't like about their employment is that they don't feel they're part of something. They're just a workie that shows up, gets paid, goes home. You want to be involved. You want to create a social environment as well as a working environment that makes you feel better when you're there, rather than feeling like it's a drudge.
Yeah, there's a big word that's like glaring in my head right now, which is empowerment. Those 79% of people who ultimately are looking to leave the industry or struggling to recruit, what level of empowerment do they have from their employer, or support do they have from the rest of the industry to make meaningful change? And then going back to your point, like, to build a culture and an industry that we can all be proud of, we need to empower people to come up with ideas. That's psychological safety, to say, here's a suggestion that I think might work, and not to be shut down, and to be able to go, okay, let's see how we can work with this. And I think when you speak to people within hospitality from both sides of the fence, I think the overall feeling is one of pessimists. There is no change. It's impossible. It will never ever change. What are you doing? You should unionize the whole thing and everyone should just be on strike.
Right.
Which I understand the thought process and the emotion behind that. But rather than thinking this is the problem, it's all doom and gloom, let's use this opportunity to be able to celebrate these voices and say, if it hasn't been done before, let's create it. Come up with a weird and wonderful idea. The elephants, for example, for us, are a way of generating conversation. Create your own NAFEM within your environment.
There we go. Great answer. Thank you, Imran.
And that's, like, to Chris's point, is what the Burn Chef stands for. Obviously, we're here to break the stigma around mental health, but it's about creating conversations of all kinds, right? That it's going to, maybe if it's about mental health or not, it's just creating that open dialogue, and so much growth can come from that, right? And as long as we create those rooms for anyone to feel safe to come into, if it's your bottom line or whatever it is, potential growth, that can be coming from your CEO or your dishwasher.
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways that your business can be positively effective or affected, and it doesn't always have to come from the top down. So creating those environments where any of us can really speak can help bring new and better ideas to the table.
Great answer. Thank you, Imran. A final question for me, and if you could all answer this, please. I'd like you to bit of future gazing. Let's predict the future here. How will kitchen conditions, and as a consequence, the sector itself, improve with the right focus, with the right investment, and with the right support? Tom?
The future is interesting to say the least, but one of the things that I'm seeing more of now is streaming in education, where they're exposing young people to more and more career opportunities right from kindergarten. And I think that's going to make a really big difference, because the idea of understanding where somebody is going to go later in life very early and guiding them in that route, I think we're going to see more people come out that'll look at the service industry, which has not got a great name, and actually look at it as a career if we take the time to create it into a career. So it's a two-sided coin.
What you said is pivotal. So I used to be embarrassed to work in a restaurant because I had friends that went off to college and I chose to go in a path that was not traditional. I just wasn't good at school, but I was great at talking to people. But I was embarrassed to be a waitress. But because I was a server, right? I'm serving people. When I started changing, like this is my career, this is my life. I'm a lifer. I'm proud to be a lifer. It made it more sustainable for me. Like this is my purpose in life, is to give people experiences. But there's this connotation of that we are less than, and that for kitchen, I think staff specifically, there is a very rough stigma that goes around people that work in a kitchen. We talked about dishwashers. They're considered the low men on the totem pole. They're actually the backbone of every kitchen. If you don't have a great dishwasher that is able to do the job, your whole structure is crumbling, and the restaurant will feel that. So I think I'm really optimistic that if we can navigate the conversation for this to be a career and there's a viable life in it and it's not this horrible place, it's going to be incredible, because food's a love language. Everyone loves to dine out, right? So we need to change that narrative and change the way we talk about the service industry as not this less than position, because it should not be. And look at where we are right now. Thousands of people, right? So,
Chris, are you confident that we will change that narrative?
Yeah, I do. I mean, if I wasn't confident, I wouldn't be sat here now. The change is happening. It's happening rapidly. There are some challenges on the horizon. I think that, one question I got asked by a university I spoke at recently was, this is all very well and good, but it's going to cost us loads of money to create change. I was like, it doesn't always cost money. Culture doesn't cost money. Yeah. It's about how you embody core values and how you live by those as well. So not everything has to cost money. And I agree with Colleen, and we have to be more positive about the sector. Yes, the stats are harrowing, but if we get too locked into those stats without actually starting to promote the positivity, and one way that we're working to do that is we've designed a global accreditation scheme that looks at workplace safety. So whether or not there's policies on parental leave, on menopause, on mental health, whether or not there's adequate training, time off, rest and recovery periods, so that we can start to actually collate all this information, which is then verified by internal surveys with the teams. And then we can build a database of employers where you go to, and the chances are you'll have a really great long-term career. And we capture those stories and we tell those stories, so that no longer is it a case of, don't go and work in hospitality, it's really long and stressful, but actually I've got a work-life balance, I'm well paid, I'm creative, I have autonomy in my work, and also what I say gets valued. So that's going to take time, but I feel very positive.
Wonderful. Do you share that positivity, Imran?
Oh, I do. I'm blessed by working a lot with the younger generation. And for the longest time, I know Colleen mentioned it earlier, we were always taught in the old generations before just to take it on the chin, to play through the pain, if you will, right? And we've seen it in sports, we've heard it in kitchens, but Chris noted earlier is that we're really thinking about empowerment. When we think about the younger generation, the way that we've been parented maybe in a different way than our ancestors, we've empowered my generation, the younger generation. And I'm on that interesting cusp of two generations of the old head chefs moving out with the new generation coming in, and that empowerment to know how they should be treated or not be treated in these environments, or empowerment to bring new business ideas to the table. And I feel we're going to see a new generation of empowered chefs or thinkers, movers, shakers, whatever you want to call it, to bring new, exciting ideas on how this industry is really going to grow into something, I think, better than it's ever been.
Wonderful. On that very positive note, let's draw things to a close. I'd like to really thank Halton and the Burnt Chef Project for showing such fantastic leadership in this extremely important area, and for their support today. Also, of course, huge thanks to Tom, to Chris, to Colleen, and to Imran for their exceptional insight today. Please do request your copy of the Kitchen Condition Report, which we'll publish this spring. Follow the link on this video to request a copy. Otherwise, thank you for watching and goodbye from the NAFEM show. Thank you.